Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We can all simmer down. There's a couple of chairs.
No, it's fine. Okay.
If you'd like that. I'm Professor Rebecca Kennedy, the director of the museum here, and professor in the Department of Classics. I just want to welcome you all this evening to this really wonderful talk. I am really excited to have Mr. Emory Douglas here. This would not have been possible without the hard work of both Megan Hancock, our curator of exhibitions here and education, but more importantly, Professor Lorraine from the history department, who came to us and said, hey, can we have Emory Douglas do a show here, and can we have him come and visit? And we're really, really excited, and we're truly proud to have him here to speak with us this evening. So I'm going to introduce you to Professor Areza, and then she will do the honors of introducing Mr. Emory Douglas. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura Reza, I'm chair of the history department at Denison, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome Emory Douglas to Denison. So tonight's event, as well as the museum's semester-long exhibition of his artwork, are co-sponsored by the history department's Donald E. Sharp Lecture Fund in American History and the Denison Museum. And I'm excited that we could work together for this event. And that I want to take a moment to especially thank the staff of the Denison Museum, especially Rebecca Kennedy, Megan Hancock, and interns Gabriella Caldwell and Sophia Rock for their hard work in organizing and staging this incredible exhibit. So Emory Douglas is one of our country's foremost activist artists. In early 1967, he joined the nascent Black Panther Party, which had formed just a few months prior in Oakland, California. He soon became its Minister of Culture and lead artist of the Black Panther newspaper, which at its peak reached hundreds of thousands of readers across the country and around the world. His vivid artwork captured the attention of the newspaper's readers and came to define the newspaper's style. The images that he created for the Black Panther Party, including his iconic depiction of pigs, both conveyed the issues of the day and served as calls to action. Party co-founder Bobby Seale said of him, and I quote, "Emory Douglas's artistic flavor was the revolutionary humanistic reflection of the 60s mood, our aspirations, and the demands for our constitutional, democratic, civil, and human rights." Mr. Douglas has continued to create art in the fight for revolutionary justice, working with activists and artists throughout the US and around the world. It is truly an honor to have him and a sampling of his artwork here with us tonight. Mr. Emory Douglas.
Yeah. Thank you. I would like to start off by saying all power to the people. And also, I'm not sure, it looks like a timer is on. Maybe it shouldn't be.
There you go.
Okay. I just had this, today I'm going to go with more relevant, more recent artwork. Start from that because it's a very long files I have here. I usually got about 230 on there. But I'm going to start with the ones that I've done and remixed and some newer images because there's been a lot of inquiries about what I'm doing today. And so that's what I'm going to start off with. Unfortunately, I thought this was right next to it, so I will go down to that location. And then from that location, I will, if time permits, I will come back to a lot of the ones you see here. But I will show this one here. Richard Nixon, 1970, about 72, as Donald Trump. This is where I usually end the first part of the historical stuff, but I'm going to start off with that because we always like to show our solidarity, our solidarity with the original caretakers of the land. And so this is one of the images that I did during that time showing our solidarity with the original caretakers of the land. First, before I go any further, I want to read this statement I have here. It's called The Battle Cry, Culture is a Weapon. The battle cry, culture is a weapon, is a powerful tool in all of its expressions and forms. It has the power to transform the colonization of the imagination. It is a reflection of our history of resistance and a product of that history. Like the flower is a product of the seed. Culture is a weapon at this time in history is the manifestation of the extreme reactionary times in the world we are living in today. As a definition, it is not absolute, but a continuation of expressions and interpretations, compassion, love, beauty, pain, and suffering that one feels and observes that penetrates the souls of the resistance via the resistor, we the people, against all forms of cruel and unjust authority. Culture is a weapon as a concept. It is the creative vehicle to communicate genuine truths about social concerns, truth you will never hear expressed by any reactionary bureaucrat. It is our duty as the makers of the art of resistance to always recognize the oppression of others. The goal should be to make the message clear so that even a child can understand it. Don't be fooled by deception. Know the rules before you break them. Don't lose sight of what the goal is. All power to the people. As I mentioned, this is showing an original caretaker of the land. This one here is first Sonia Sanchez. This is historical one. Sonia Sanchez's first poetry book. She asked me to do the cover of it in 1969 when she was teaching at San Francisco State University. This is the more recent version of that image. And these images I'm going to show you will be, like I said, retrospective upgrades and newer images. I'm also going to show you some slides of recent travels and interactions with others, artists around the world as well. Here's the most one was in the book. This is Malcolm X. I call this Malcolm X the father figure. This is Dr. King, one of the remix as well. And some of these are going to be very intense, very provocative, and to the point on different issues as we go along. This one's called Malcolm X. Here's another remix I did as well of an older image. This was a sister who used to live in the back of our national headquarters. And each week she would come and get her paper. She would, regardless, she would come get her paper and sit out and read it. And I took a photograph of her during that time and reinterpreted this photograph. And here for this particular one, it says, "It's a darn shame how the government won't give us, the needy, a helping hand." Here's another remix of another interpretation of a historical image as well. And he said, "Here we are living in the land of plenty while we, the people, starve." And as you see, the image on the bag is the People's Free Food Program. Also, this was again, another one, a retrospective history image that I remixed. This brother, even though he was slushed, he would be slushed, but every week he would come get his paper, no matter what. Know how he was staggered, know how he felt. He would come to the office and get his paper. And it says, "I know one thing, the next time I vote, it's going to be for people's power only. We've been lied to, murdered, jailed, brutalized, unemployed, neglected as infants, young adults, and senior citizens. forced to fight wars of aggression, manipulated to support wars against liberation. So it's kind of in the context of what you may have seen and read if you were reading the Black Panther newspaper. This is a more recent remix of several images, as one you have on the wall. This is a remix of that. It says, "Our struggle continues from one generation to the next." Actually, both of these images you see here were done in black and white in 1969. I remember when the Cuban used to pick up our work and reprint it and make posters out of it, the black and white images. And the youngsters who used to go to Cuba to work on the sugarcane brigades used to see these images. And they thought I was copying the Cuban art. They used to come back and say, "We seen our art in Cuba. You didn't do that work." For many years, they thought I was copying the Cuban art, but they were remixing some of the images that I did. And how that people became aware of that was one guy named Lincoln Cushing, who did this book on the Cuban art. When he went over there, he seen the actual artwork with my name on it. But for many years, he had even been one of those who thought I was remixing their work. Here's again sharecroppers. Blacks used to work a lot of the land as sharecroppers in this country. Just like farm workers, the same field, the stuff that they worked in California. We, as black folks, used to work them as well. I recall as a youngster, they used to bring these trucks through the community in the summer and on the weekends to pick up black people to go to work in the fields, and that was the only jobs they had to make money to pay their rents or the kids to buy school clothes over the summer, so when the school started back. Here again is that one. Here's one, to educate, to liberate. Little kids got the symbol of the panther and the word freedom and a little plane with the words educate, to liberate. Here's one that says, "Mama said HIV/AIDS is an act of genocide in Africa, and it's an epidemic in our community." And you wonder why I would say that? Is because the fact that in Africa, they don't give them the generic drugs to prolong their life. They can't afford it. The pharmaceutical companies don't want to allow that to happen on a grand scale. This one says, "Health is wealth." And you have the young lady saying, "I like this saying," and the young man saying, "Yeah, it's non-toxic." Here's one, young girl, young boy, with the badges, young man, and the badge on the young man says, I'm food insecure. And the young lady's badge says, "I'm homeless." So a lot of times we see the homeless, they look down and out, but you got homeless with families who've got kids and try to dress them, make them look clean and pride, but you're still homeless. You got the working homeless. Don't support the greedy, support the needy. Here's one I had with the Black Panther Party, October 1966, 1982, showing the different social programs within the figure itself that we had. We had a free busing to prison program for those who wanted to have loved ones who were incarcerated. We would take them to visit those in prison. We had in Winston-Salem, first chapter in the South, we had an ambulance service, a brand new ambulance, and because what happened, the ambulance wouldn't come into the community. So the Panthers went and got certified, and the community helped them buy an ambulance. So in Winston-Salem, we had an ambulance service, but we had free health clinics all across the country. This is called Father's Love. This is called Mother's Love. Can you see over here? Okay. This is called Bluest Eye. This was based on Toni Morris's book, Bluest Eye. I was asked to be a part of an exhibition that was dealing with banned books and censored books in this country. And there's been over 100 books that have been either censored or attempted to be banned in this country. And so she had the list, and I chose Toni Morrison's book, Bluest Eye. And after I read it, it came to the last. It said in this book, in essence, the young lady, when she was born, her mother thought she was going to be, wasn't going to have a beautiful life, thought she was an ugly baby. She wasn't going to have a beautiful life, and she's going to have a rough time, and she did. And she lived in this fantasy world, was abused, raped, confronted with racism, all those things. And the last page, I recall Toni Morrison mentioning something about she could have been assassinated. And it came to my mind, well, you don't have to be assassinated with a bullet. You can be psychologically assassinated. She was psychologically assassinated by a life's journey. Here's one I did with Greg Morizumi, a curator, had an exhibit on Japanese American and African American reparations. And this was one of the images that I had in that exhibit in relationship to talking about reparations. Here's the other one I had also in there. And as you can see with this one, I used the words to spell out the word reparations. And I had this symbol, the African symbol down here from West Africa, which this part here, right here, repetition all the way across, means that you are a slave of him whose handcuffs you wear. Here's one with the word freedom, overlapping the word with the fist, self-determination. This is one I did with Fabiana Rodriguez, Chicano artist. This was a wood print, about 7 feet by 3.5, and we had to print them out on the street. And justice resists unjust laws. This is one where I integrated in the background some African pattern with the symbol of the country of Africa, the words peace. Here's one I did again, using that same symbol integrated into this artwork. And the book says Black Studies. This is a historical one. The black scholar in about in the early days of the Panthers asked me, it was around 1989, asked me to do the cover on black politics in America. And this is what I came up with. The question mark, they're both eating at the same trough, Democrat and Republican. Here you have today, both, you're talking about the institutions. You got good people in both institutions, but people in there who are good really don't have no power, really don't have no say. So it's about toxic waste. It's a two-headed snake. Right now you got the Republican Party attacking and control after the Democratic Party. You got the Democratic Party who probably doing the worst thing later on. So it's about toxic waste. This is called Real Talk. Mama, why didn't President Obama pardon Lillian Peltier also? Sadly, because of government's ongoing deep and extreme hatred, baby. This is a recent one I did of Lillian Peltier. It's on an exhibit in a friend of mine, Rigo 23. It's called Innocent, and it's in Los Angeles, California at the main museum. Fascist xenophobe. Commander-in-Chief, not as Obama said, torture as I say. Here's using the words war, as you spell it out in the abstract, W-A-R. When you have the red in the back, that's like going at each other. That's a symbol of war. If they were going the same way, that would be unity or peace. But since they're going at each other, that's collision. This is on the Obama watch, drone warfare. and where it's going on then and now is Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Africa. Here's what war does to human beings. The impact of war. When you talk about war and the way they're talking about it today with the bombs and the nuclear weapons and destruction of the earth, nobody can win a war. Nobody can do nuclear war. No matter if the U.S. say that they're going to win the war and you think they're going to win the war, it'd be so devastating to this country. The retaliation would be so devastating to this country that it wouldn't recover as well. And there just came a report that just came out that said it would take, minimum of 20 years to get rid of the toxic from nuclear war or that would take place today. This is when Obama, the family man, Obama doing the government business. A lot of people don't know under his when he was president, he signed a bill called the Kill Bill, where he got together each week with a whole group of people, and they decided who they were going to assassinate in the world. Now the people didn't know that. They gave him, therefore that made him a Nobel fraud. He got the Nobel Prize, but that made him a Nobel fraud. So in that context, this is over there in apartheid Israel. It just said genocide, the deliberate killing of a large group of people, especially those of a particular ethnic group or nation. Free the land by any means necessary. Boycott, divest, down with apartheid. This has been a lot of battles around this in relationship to what's happening in the apartheid Israel. Boycott, divest, sanctions in relationship to that. Peace heals, war kills. I was contemplating the word peace, and I said peace can be peace, peace can be relative. Peace can be peace, peace can be attacked. Today, peace is being attacked. Peace is being bloodied. You got the whole thing dealing with the privatization of the military in relationship to the weapons and all. This is about money. This is about making money. When you talk about all the military equipment that the U.S. government and Trump and them is trying to sell and hype up other countries to buy from them, this is about profit, making money. I did this initially in 2016 when I initially heard about what was happening in Yemen, before there was even on the radar. And what I had got some information looking at alternative news and references from other locations, and found out that it was the United States and the British who were giving the money and the weapons to the Saudis to attack Yemen. And I'll call it genocide. Military, millions, food insecurity, millions displaced, thousands injured, humanitarian import blockade, no food, no nothing comes into the country, thousands dead. Now it's more than just 10,000, 20,000, maybe more than that dead. Water shortage, all that, right now, right this minute, as we speak, as I speak here. That's what's happening in Yemen. In many, we see what's happening over in Iraq and Syria. When you look at, you got whole towns. People can't, ghost town. People can't go back to them. They're going back to them. They're having a hard time surviving, if at all. This is a play on global warming with the musician feeling the spirit of understanding what global warming is. You got the globe with the heart, compassion. That's what the heart stands for, compassion. That's maybe some, symbol of stop, heating up, all lightning, thunder. You got islands of place today where people are not going to be able to live at in the next 5 years because of global warming. You got glaciers that's melted right now at a rate higher than anticipated. All these kinds of things, and some people say the global warming don't exist. Well, if it don't exist, something's happening. What is it? Here's again, fracked, fracked, fracked. Mother Earth. This is a more recent one. I just did this one not too long ago, about a couple of weeks ago. That's what we call global warming. This one says Arab, Muslim, Islam. U.S. government coded word for terrorist, hate, discrimination. Black male. U.S. government's coded word for hate, discriminate, kill. Police terror, USA. As much as things change, some things stay the same. Why do they get to brutalize and murder us, and we get to blame? This is played off the Black Code. The Black Code comes from slavery. Black Code is on black person walking down the road, see the white person, had to bow their head, step aside, can't look at them, part of the Black Code. And it says the black person has no rights, which an institutional racist judicial system is bound to respect. It gives the appearance of being fair and just when the biased decisions have already been decided. Legal lynching, then and now. Attorney General, USA. Black Lives Matter, Justice Now. Black Lives Matter, Black lives like the flower, like the beauty of life, like the fresh air. Dare to struggle, dare to win. Now I'll show a few of my collaborations. This is in Campbelltown in Australia. As you see, these are some of the images that I showed, a few of them. These are when they were black and white before I had remixed them. I took them to Campbelltown. I collaborated with the collaboration with Aboriginal artist Richard Bell. It's about as long as this wall, about 16 feet high. And we had put the call out. We had many people who came in to help us on the mural project itself. Here again is another one that we did of an image in Brisbane, in a narrow street, or street to where a lot of people pass. That was an image of a well-known activist named Gary Foley. And it says, "Pardon me for being born into a nation of racists." Just wanted to cut it off as suggestive. And to your left, where you can barely see, that's Richard Bell, the Aboriginal artist. We also remixed this one because the colors of the Aboriginal is red, green, red, black, and yellow. And they wanted to use the word reparations. This one also was in the other, it was a 3-alley, one side, left side, right side, and back side. This was on the right side. And the reason why they wanted this image, we did this image, was because Peter Norman was the white runner who ran in the Olympics with John Carlos and Tommy Smith when they gave the Black Power sign. He was in solidarity with John Carlos and Tommy Smith. He wore the badge for Olympians for Human Rights. In 1982, 1968, he took second in that race, but when he went back to his country, he qualified for the 1972 Olympics, they blacklisted him because he supported John Carlos and Tommy Smith. And he did not get to run in the Olympics again. And they were all good friends, and so a lot of people young people in Australia didn't know this. So you had people asking us questions about the mural and stuff as they were coming through and what have you. These are some of my images. As you see, you might see that image on the wall right over there, but that's a remix of it by the Zapatista Mayan Women Collective in Chiapas. They did 6 of my images in embroideries with Mayan symbols in the images themselves. I've been to Chiapas. I was invited there to do artist in residency. I've been there 4 times since then. Done some mural paintings and collective work together. Here's I'm gonna show you several more of those images. This is another one of them, Zapatero Negra was a project. Zapatero Negra was played off of Zapatista's Panther, Zapatero Negra. That was a whole movement, and there was music made around it by some hip-hop artists, the whole thing. There's a book out about that, it just came out recently. Here again, as you can see, that's the one based on the image that I did of the book of Sonia Sanchez's initial book. That's the one that you see, Afro-American Solidarity with the Oppressed People in the World. They took that one and remixed it into the images. This is a historical one. Here's where we were we was in the middle of the jungle. We went to, this is the school building. This is dirt floors. This is Zapatista, very poor, but loving in Mayans. But they invited Caleb Duarte, coordinated, so we were allowed to come to paint the school here. Dirt floors. You have to bring your own paint. You have to bring your own sleeping bags. They will give you and feed you whatever they have to eat, but they can't afford to give you anything else, but they tend to love and care. And we had to sleep up on the platform here at night. We had at the top, around the edges is open, all here. There's tin roofs here. And I turned on my computer to try to turn it off one night, and all of a sudden, all the bugs just stacked the computer. I had to turn it off. You have to go to the bathroom. You got to go to the outhouse down the hill, a hole in the ground, his and her. And that's the life that you live with when you go to Chiapas. So this is what we were able to do in about a day and a half. We were there because we had to leave in a day and a half. We only had a day and a half to paint because it rained one day. It really stormed, so we couldn't do anything else. So we kind of highlighted everything in there and the young people who came in and communicated with us, they eventually came in. Once they finished with their schooling, they could come and stay all night if they chose to. So they came in and work with us as well, as much as they could. And they go to school there for about 3 months. Then they go back to their villages and they work the fields and they come back again, like that. Here's me in a store, a Zapatista store. That's me where I was being introduced to the Zapatistas. This store, we painted this store. We came back a year later and as a collective, about 14, 15 of us, and we painted the store itself. And this is the store itself. And there was artists from different parts of the world where we came together. And it was around solidarity, education, all those things. Health is what they wanted to be included in the image itself. There was the Zapatista dolls, as you may have seen them right up on the ledges, right here and what have you. And this was my contributions. The snail on its pace, and patience and what have you. It means all those things. And it says salud, solidarity, education, production, cultural. Here's another one called People of the Corn. So this is one I did as well. Ayo Zianapa. This was in commemoration and with the 43 students that were missing, that were killed in Guerrero, the state of Guerrero, in Mexico. This is when I visit grade schools in the Bay Area. This is Allendale Elementary School. This one is when I was in Urbis in Manchester, England. I went there and I had to do a master class with the young people whose work was in the exhibition itself in Urbis in Manchester. This was in 1969, this one. And these was about young people who were dealing with their self-esteem, developing their self-esteem. Yeah, and they had, some of them had been a statue of the fist of John Carlos and Tommy Smith the year before in their communities there. And there was so much outrage behind it because of the lack of understanding of what it symbolically represented. So when I was there, they asked me about that history, and I put it in a context for them, and they understood then how to communicate that to the community. Here's showing that exhibit itself. We had at that exhibit, you had desks in the exhibition and had connected to the desk books that were required reading of the Black Panthers. So that when people came into the exhibit, they could read some of the same literature that was required reading of the Black Panthers. A lot of people think that the first thing that people got when they came to Panthers was a gun. Well, they got books to read, to understand as well. And then you see the exhibition. This exhibition had audio and video where people could look at on a large scale. They said this exhibit started in October of 1968, went on to April of 1969, and they had over 43,000 people come through this exhibition. This is opening night. Here's one when I was in New Zealand. This is collaboration with a Maori artist named Wayne Ewell and Portuguese artist who lives between the States and in Portugal. His name is Rigo 23. We were collaborating with Wayne Ewell, and I was referring to him something I had seen that I wanted to do because I looked online and I found this twist symbol. And the twist symbols mean that if we may go different ways, but we always come back together. And when I told him about the symbol, he said, "Oh, that's just a plain symbol. It has a lot of meaning, but there's nothing extraordinary, exciting about it." And so I got to wondering, how could I make this impact symbol have an impact? So I took this symbol and I took the Maori flag and I combined them together, and I came up with this as my design. And it was called, Maori in general gave me the words, what it meant in Maori. And it says, "Overcoming oppression is our path to unity." That was interpreted for me in Maori. And this is where, it was just at the exhibit, was out in South Auckland. South Auckland is where you got a lot of gangs in New Zealand, like you got everywhere else. And this was in like the hood of New Zealand, South Auckland. And it was at this mall. And it was during the Auckland International Art Festival. And they never had done anything out there before. But they wanted us to come and be a part of it and do this particular exhibition. So what you had this news reporter who came and covered us while we were working on the exhibition. And you had a lot of young people coming in and interacting with us about what we were doing and what have you, because this was like those shopping malls. And he wrote that this was the best part of the overall international festival, art festival, because of how the interaction we had with the community. So it got a lot of popular write-up. This is the first time I went to New Zealand in 2009, when I was invited by Elam International School of Fine Arts to do artist in residency for 41 days. The 41 days I was there was so much request that they had to scratch the artist in residency, and I traveled the North and the South Island talking about the history behind the art and the politics, along with the other artists who I was supposed to do the artist residency with. It was a very unbelievable experience. The Maori, when I first there, they met me at the airport, took me to the marae, gave me a official welcome to the land, and that happened everywhere we went. But a lot of people don't realize that there were Polynesian Panthers who were original chapter of the Black Panther Party in 1971. And this is on the streets by the university, where you see these images here, wall size. This is when I met with a Samoan school, boys' school, and amazing artists, amazing, beautiful artwork there in South. And this was in South Auckland. Here was at a library where they were planning on doing a mural or protesting against something that was happening with the corporations coming in, taking up the land, and I was just giving them suggestions on that. I was invited to Argentina, to Mar del Plata. Young people, first time for Trimarchi. Young people contacted me on Facebook. And I had never looked on Facebook at my messages. And I said, let me check this out, see what this is. I looked on there and I had this message from them inviting me to come to Argentina. And so what I did is they gave me the information, they gave me the site, and I looked at it. It seemed like a lot of something I would like to do. And I went to Argentina. And this was amazing. These were young people who had gotten together maybe 10 years prior to that, and said they didn't have anyone to really teach them about graphic designing, so they got together and began to invite graphic designers from outside to come to learn from. And they had this 3-day festival at the major basketball stadium. And they had about 6,000 young people come from Argentina, come from Brazil, come from Paraguay. All those countries around there came to this festival. And they had the speakers set up like a professional inside. In between the speakers outside, in the corridor, you had all these young artists who were displaying their work. Outside, when they had a break, they had skateboarding, and they had music. And they had this going on for 3 days. Then they would go back to the local. I said, how did they get here? They brought them there in buses and what have you. And they were staying at the hotels, and they would have these discussions, critiquing, evaluating what took place that day when they went there. And this is when I gave my presentation there. They had an interpreter, and they had 2 large screens, big as this wall on each side, and you had all these folks, young people, looking at your presentation. And this is when I finished. And after that, I came to evaluate, because when I finished, they gave you about 7 curtain calls. And I kept thinking, what is that? Why is that? What was so interesting about that? And I began to realize what it was is that they could see in the artwork, what I was talking about, some of the fight and determination of things that they're dealing with in their own countries. That was the thing that brought us together, that they could see in that artwork, in this artwork, and what I talked about, what they were in context of where they lived at, that they were dealing with as well. This is in Portugal, at a gallery. I can't recall the name, but it went up 4 floors. And each floor, as you see in here, they had painted the murals on the wall as you stepped up to go to each gallery on the floor, each floor. That shows you the original image of the one I showed you earlier. This is here again. This one also is again, but that's there. Now this one is done twice. This was in Portugal. This is in Nottingham Contemporary in the UK, where it was always painted at. This is in Bogota, Colombia. I had an exhibit there last year in Bogota, Colombia. And this is on the streets of showing the advertisements for it. Also on the streets, as you're going up one street and down the other, you would see these big signs that they had displayed about the exhibit itself. This is in Sao Paulo. This was earlier this was in Sao Paulo this year. Sao Paulo, I think it was just this year, yeah. And this is outside of a place called Sessi. It's a huge complex. And this is outside. They also had 5 or 6 elevators where they had the images on the elevators. This was amazing. I never seen nothing like this. As you can see, I'm showing you some of the images of the inside of the preparations of the installation. Here's my work at the Lorraine Hansberry Civil Rights Museum in Tennessee. This is where Dr. King was assassinated. They have this exhibit, a part of the Black Power exhibit in that museum. When you go there, you will see this. Here's something I did with Fabiana Rodriguez when I went to the border, dealing with culture strike and the immigration about a couple of years back. And I did it, called it Toxic Waste. This is when SB 1070 in Arizona, when it was passing the laws, which they have now, to stop you, if they think you're a refugee, and stop you and pack you down, do whatever they choose to. You can't get no job, no nothing, all that. That was Arizona, and I called it Toxic Waste. And I had the around the edges is the ICE, Immigration and Custom Enforcement. ALAC was the American Legislative Exchange Council, where they get together with the legislators and make these laws that they pass. You had the CCA, Correction Corp of America, U.S. largest private prison organization, and the GEO Group Incorporated is the second largest U.S. private prison corporate operation. I remember we went to the border, went across the border. They had people who helped them when they were trying to get across, and they get hurt. They'd help them. If they got broken limbs or something, it would help them. We went to another location where they try to encourage them not to go any further, and a lot of them continue on, and they go out into the desert, and that's where they disappear. We went to the courtroom. They had 75 young people chained together, fists, waist, legs, and they go in front of the judge together, and the judge asked them, "How do you plead?" They said, "Guilty." One said, "Not guilty." Those who pleaded guilty, they sent them back as quick as they could then. The one that pleaded not guilty, we asked in the chamber after that, we asked the judge, what's going to happen with them? He said, well, he ain't going to get out. He's going to get more time. Don't make a difference if he pleaded guilty, they're going to give him more time. We said, well, where do you send them? They send them to private prison. It's about profit. It's about making money. It's private prisons. That's where they go until they ship them back. That's where people go. We went to the morgue. They had over 250 bodies they couldn't do what with them because they have no identification. They're just there. 250 bodies. This is in Oakland. This is a solid artist in solidarity with Palestine. This is a mural, Free the Land. This was my contribution to the mural. Long mural, tall as the ceiling, about twice as long as this wall. Each wall. There was myself. There was Afrocentric artists. There were Japanese American artists. There were Indigenous American artists. There was Jewish American artists. There was the Palestinian artists, all involved in the mural and together. This was the opening of the mural. It's dealing with the water and what have you. Here myself standing with the Palestinian young people in front of the mural, the part they're done. This is in solidarity with Haiti in relationship to when the military there caused the cholera epidemic by urinating in the water and feces out in the water, caused the epidemic where over 8,000, maybe more than that now, have died from the cholera epidemic in Haiti because of the military there who feces in the water, messed up the whole, contaminated all the water. And the UN, and because I have in the back, I have the UN symbol, because UN refused to recognize and to compensate the Haitians for the issue that they created. Here's one I talked about as young people and the gangbangers back and forth, talking bullets, looking bullets, less than 1%. I call them endangered species, which I got another one called Endangered Species. And this one's more like mental bondage, because the chains on the brain. That image was also done in New Zealand when I worked with some young people the last time I went, and they wanted to use that image, but they wanted to reflect it as peace or something. So instead of, they got tattoos, they're gonna call them tattoos, they call them mochas. And so they wanted to have the mocha in the concept of the words peace on each face, as you can see here. And they know they have Crips and blood symbols there, red and blue, so they want to make the flower with the blue and the red. And this is over at a shopping mall across from a library in South Auckland. This is Tommy Iti, a well-known Pacific Islander from Tuhoe, who I met when I was there, and we became very good friends. And that's when they meet you, they call it honing, head to nose. This is one I call Endangered Species. Somebody earlier asked me about, did I do something on prisons? Yes, I do stuff on prisons. Here again, it's showing the bubble, that these young people don't realize what they're getting in today. When they get in prison, they get in modern day slavery. And I just use that. This has been used quite a bit, and people use it a lot of barcode, but I want to use it in this particular piece. And young people, particularly people of color and black people, being targeted for the prison because there's profit in it. Because what it is, when the privatization, and the prison privatization, is just like, it's a business. If you're in business, you got to have a product. If you don't have no product, you don't make no money. If you have to have 50% of your shelf full with a product to make money, then to stay in business, then you don't have to have 50% of people incarcerated in your prison to make a profit. So you're going to always have, in the privatization, you're going to always have people incarcerated because it's about making money. Here's the more recent one I did, calling it Private Property, Prison Industrial Complex. Here's the image that's on the wall there. This is about justice. Here again, this one says justice now, free political prisoners now. And you have 20, 30 political prisoners incarcerated today. 13 to 20 of them are Black Panthers. Some of them have been in there 30, 40 years or more. This is for Panthers, we'll call it Angola 3, when the Angola was a prison, was a slave plantation in Louisiana. These Panthers were there, and while they were in prison, they were targeted by the prison and set up for murder of a prison guard, which they didn't do. And the wife of the prison guard, 30, 40 years later, came and said, 20, 30 years later, came and said, she knew they didn't do it. And she came out and spoke and supported them that they didn't do it. Robert King, one of them got out maybe 10, 15 years ago. The other one just was supposed to get out, and he died 2 days after we were able to get him out. And the other one just recently got out about 6 months to a year ago. But they were charged with the killing of a prison guard, and they were charged because what they were doing as Panthers in prison, they were the predators in prison. They were stopping them from attacking those prisoners who were coming into the system who couldn't take care of themselves. They were educating them, all those things, and getting lawsuits for better quality of life for the issues for those who were incarcerated at the time. Here's one called Mumia, Freedom, Mumia Abu Jamal. This one is Free Political Prisoners, Freedom Fighters, USA. Fighters for peace, justice, freedom, particularly the struggle against recognized cruel and oppressive conditions, government's inhumane policies and actions. And this is also says, so the Panthers, it says, on the buttons it says, educate to liberate, all power to the people. And this one here, it says, all power to the people, a remix of one historical one. These are the ones that I have here of the of my more recent images. Now, if we have time permits, I'll go into some of the more recent, more historical ones. If not, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Okay.